Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory forever.
Most holy Theotokos, save us. It is, I was going to say it's remarkable, but I suppose if you really look at the story of our salvation and God's part in it, which is obviously everything, it's not remarkable because He's pretty consistent. Wouldn't you say? He's very consistent, offering Himself to mankind from the beginning. Out of His magnanimous love, He said, let us make man in our image. And He's been trying ever since that time. Ever since the fall of Adam. He's been trying to get us to pay attention to Him. He has been trying to woo us with His love. And we have proven to be a most obstinate pursuit for the Lord, I think. We've been playing hard to get for however many years, millions or 5,000 or whatever, who cares? That don't matter. The point is, we've been playing hard to get. But if you look at the story of how the Lord has laid out the story of mankind, if you look into the scriptures and you see an image, a glimpse, an in-depth glimpse of how the Holy Spirit has mixed with mankind since the beginning, you can see where the Lord has laid out a very precise unfolding of Himself to us. He's laid out a very brilliant plan, an image for us to see. If we for a moment allow ourselves to call the scriptures two testaments, I hate that. It's one testament, maybe in two halves, maybe in two chapters. It's one story. But if you look at the beginning, you see patterns established that are fulfilled in the end. The Lord gave us instructions. If we look at Leviticus and Deuteronomy and all the boring books, I'm just kidding, they're not boring, they're just very detailed. If we look at those where He's giving instructions on how the sanctuary where He will keep His covenant, the Ark of the Covenant, how that is to be set up. If you look at those details, they're very detailed. You're to have something this many cubits and to have this many lampstands and to have the tent for the Ark of the Covenant be yea by how many? You're to wear your clothing this way. This is how you are to go about your life, and this is how you are to set up the sanctuary. This is how you are to worship. He set that up for us because He knew that He was going to establish them in the land of Canaan. That would be the promised land for them. It would flow with milk and honey. The milk and honey, of course, they were thinking was a tangible thing, but the milk and honey was the grace and the favor of God, which they solidly rejected. The kingdom of Israel existed for about 100 years. Can you imagine Israel the way the Lord had established it was only 100 years old before they were conquered, before they ran into problems. Can you imagine political problems? You think that's new? That's been around since people have been living together. So forever. They only lasted 100 years. They weren't a very good kingdom. They weren't really good at it. And so they lost it. But the Lord established these patterns for us. He established His covenant with Abraham. He preserved that through Isaac and Jacob, Moses, Noah, all the people, the prophets, the patriarchs, the judges, all the way down through the apostles. He gave us a pattern that we were to follow that would ensure that His love for us was eventually reciprocated to Him, or the pattern by which it must be reciprocated was established. That perfection of love was established. And it didn't stop when the Old Testament was closed. It didn't stop with Maccabees. For those of you who are newish to Orthodoxy, Maccabees is not the Apocrypha. The Old Testament did not stop with Maccabees. There might have been a big stretch of time between when Maccabees was and then we hear St. John the Baptist calling out, prepare ye the way of the Lord. That doesn't matter. The Israelites didn't cease to exist. But I will tell you, I will remind you that what remained behind when the temple of Solomon was rebuilt, what remained behind of the Jewish people, of the Hebrew people, was just Zerubbabel, Ezra, and a very small amount of people who returned to the Promised Land after 2 generations in Babylon. They rebuilt the temple according to how they remembered it, it was given down to them, how it was set up. They worshipped as they were told. They still had Levites. They still had the priesthood. But the temple was different. This was not the temple of Solomon wherein dwelt the presence of God. And it wasn't as a punishment to the Hebrew people that only a handful went back. It wasn't as a punishment to them that the Spirit of God did not dwell within that temple. It was because the Lord was preparing for the new covenant. He was preparing for the mercy seat to exist within the temple once again. Because the Ark of the Covenant contained the tablets of the law. It contained the objects that represented the covenant between God and Abraham. But the Mother of God, she whose womb was more spacious than the heavens, she is the Ark of the new covenant. Who is the new covenant? It's Christ. Who contained that covenant? Who was the container? Who was the new mercy seat? It was the Mother of God. So when we celebrate the feast of the presentation of the Mother of God in the temple by her elderly parents, Joachim and Anna, we are celebrating the fulfillment of the presence of God dwelling where he is meant to dwell. You see, he wasn't dwelling in the temple, the stones and mortar of the second temple. He was absent from there on purpose. Not his grace, but his presence was absent from there for a purpose, so that the Mother of God could go and dwell there. Now, arguably she was there for 9 or 10 years, because after a while she had to leave when she became of age to menstruate. That's when the temple virgins were put back to their families, or sent to other families that would receive them, kinsmen. So she spent about 9 to 10 years being fed spiritual food by the angels. In the temple dwelt the presence of God. The mercy seat, the Ark of the New Covenant, dwelt within the temple, awaiting the indwelling of God himself. Not just the Holy Spirit, but the real presence of God. Her womb is more spacious than the heavens. You see, look at the patterns. Our tradition tells us while she was in the temple, during those 9 or 10 years, or however many years they were, she herself sewed the curtain that went across the Holy of Holies. And when Christ was crucified and died on Holy Friday, Great and Holy Friday, the curtain was rent in twain, it says. It was torn in two. The patterns follow, they're woven together. The tapestry of our salvation is woven with and through the Mother of God. This is why we begin our year with the first feast being the birth of the Mother of God. The second feast being the presentation of the Mother of God in the temple. Now, of course, the pattern gets interrupted because we have the birth of Christ and then we have the Annunciation, which it's a little out of order for trying to go strictly chronologically, but we're on liturgical time, not chronological time. Our salvation begins and ends with the Mother of God. Our liturgical year ends with the last feast being the death of the Theotokos. The tapestry of salvation is woven with her at the center. You see how the Lord has set up the pattern, the perfect plan for salvation for you and for me. He does that not just with the general overarching arc of creation. He does it individually in our lives. He has set up a pattern in the human heart for himself to dwell. Because we are meant to be Theotokoi. We are meant to be bearers of God. We are meant to see this perfect woman who is no different from us. She is not different. She is fully human and nothing more. She is not given a special grace that changes the nature of her humanity, that makes her sinless by some fiat of God. Her sinlessness was by choice. She never angered God. She was so pure that she never chose to sin. She is shown to us as an example of what we were meant for. Why did God create man? Why did the Lord say, let us make man in our image? Because he meant to make us like her. He meant for us to be so pure in our love for him. By choice, he didn't make little automatons. He filled us with free will, because that is the context of truth and perfection and love is free will. And he invited us into relationship with him. And like I said, we've been playing hard to get since the beginning. He didn't give up on us, though. He's the most persistent lover of all time. He is the most persistent suitor that anyone could ask for. And he has designed our lives in perfect symmetry so that we could return that love to him. The possibility is there. It is initiated in our baptism. We are created in his image, made to acquire his likeness, and perfected in the baptism that Christ has given us in the Jordan. This is how we begin to participate in that perfect relationship. In our baptism, we are wedded to God. We join him in a holy marriage of perfection. And we, as very bad spouses, we are the bride of Christ. We are cheaters. We are philanderers. We are lecherous in the way we behave towards God, aren't we? That is not meant for us to be shamed. It is not meant for us to experience this profound guilt. That is meant for us to say, look how we behave towards God, and look how he requites that rejection. He simply redoubles his efforts toward us. He pursues us like a jealous lover. He will not be put off. He gives us chances again and again and again to be redeemed in his sight, and to redouble our promises to him, to live a life that is righteous, to live a life that is holy, to live a life that is pure, in order to be a suitable match for the bridegroom of heaven. We, the bride, are constantly made pure, constantly welcomed back to the marriage of heaven and earth. My beloved, the tapestry of our salvation is specifically the Mother of God in the center. If we look at the iconostas, we see, well, the doors are open, but we see the Mother of God on every royal doors. The Annunciation, the angel saying to the Mother of God, you are going to bear the Lord. And she says, huh? This is not the first time she's seen an angel, by the way. The angels ministered to the Mother of God in the temple. But in the center of our worship, we see the Mother of God saying, let it be done to me according to thy will. Perfect submission, perfect humility, beauty, truth, love for God. This is the perfect image of the bride of heaven. This is the perfect image of the Queen of heaven. In ancient times, the queen was not the wife of the king, it was the mother. The mother sat next to the king who sat on the throne. It was the king's mother who ruled next to him. And this is true also in eternity. This is true also in the divine council. It is the Mother of God who sits at the right hand of the throne, interceding for us, giving counsel to her Son. She is perfect because she chose it. You were meant to choose the same thing. So let us stop being such unreliable lovers. Let us resolve to stop being such philandering, lecherous spouses to God. Let us return to the marriage that is made in heaven, because this is where we draw our life. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Most holy Theotokos, save us.